Hi guys. Today we've got a question that somebody wrote, and they just wrote, how do you explain Deuteronomy 13 verses 6 through 11? Question mark, question mark, question mark. And so I went ahead and looked that up, and Deuteronomy chapter 13 verse 6 through 11. If your brother, the son of your mother, your son or your daughter, the wife of your bosom, or your friend who is as your own soul, secretly entices you, saying, let us go and serve other gods, which you have not known, neither you nor your fathers, of the gods of the people which are around you, which are all around you, near to you or far off from you, from one end of the earth to the other end of the earth, you shall not consent to him or listen to him. Nor shall your eye pity him, nor shall you spare him or conceal him, but you shall surely kill him. Your hand shall be first against him to put him to death, and afterward the hand of all the people. And you shall stone him with stones until he dies, because he sought to entice you away from the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage. So all Israel shall hear and fear, and not again do such wickedness as this among you. Okay, so I'm just going to assume that their question is, why would a God of love, because we know that God is love, right? And the law of non-contradiction says that, uh, these things are both true because they're in the Bible. We know they're both true, so they can't contradict each other. Um, so we have to find a way to reconcile laws like this, that where God says, if somebody secretly comes to you, even somebody in your own family or your best friend, and says, "Hey, listen, man, I've been going up to this Baal temple and worshiping Baal with some of these countries around us, and these people, and man, it's just amazing the things that you see. You should come with me." And God says you're supposed to have that person stoned to death for enticing you to go worship these other gods. Now, why is that such a big deal? Who really cares? Is that an offense worthy of being stoned to death, being killed? Um, and it just seems a little harsh from a God of love. Uh, and so the answer to that, um, look in the previous chapter, Deuteronomy chapter 12, and you see kind of a reason as to why God set up these laws that may seem harsh to us. Chapter 12 and verse 29 through 32. When the Lord your God cuts off from before you the nations which you go to dispossess, and you displace them and dwell in their land, take heed to yourself that you are not ensnared to follow them after they are destroyed from before you, and that you do not inquire after their gods, saying, how did these nations serve their gods? I also will do likewise. You shall worship the Lord your God in that way. You shall not worship the Lord your God in that way. For every abomination to the Lord which he hates, they have done to their gods. For they burn even their sons and daughters in the fire to their gods. Whatever I command you, be careful to observe it. You shall not add to it, nor take away from it. This is the reason God made such harsh and serious and very strict laws regarding the nations, the Amorites, the Hittites, the Jebusites, all these nations that were in the land of Canaan when Israel first arrived. These nations weren't just, normal people hanging out, going to work, 9 to 5, coming home, barbecuing with the kids, watching some TV, reading the newspaper, going to bed, rinse and repeat. These weren't just people who were living their lives like you and I may think. These were utterly depraved savages. So much so, and a lot of it centered around their heathen worship rituals and their false gods. Um, and they were so bad as to even burn their sons and daughters in the fire. Human sacrifice of their sons and daughters to these false gods. And Jesus did not want his people, who were the oracles of his truth, and through which God would become a man and be born and accomplish the salvation of the world. God did not want them drawn off into this wickedness. And God knows the end from the beginning. He could see that if they started doing this, started hanging out with these heathen people, mixing with them, intermarrying with them, and especially messing around with their idols, their false gods, that this is the kind of thing that it would lead to. Now you could say, well, I'm sure Israel, they have the truth, this and that. I'm sure they weren't going to go that far, Let them just go and look at it for a while. It's not like they're going to all of a sudden be drawn away and start sacrificing their own children, for goodness sake. I mean, they don't need to have their hand held the whole time, Maybe God's just being overly strict, overly paranoid about what would happen. Well, turn to Psalm 106. Psalm 106 and verse 34 to 41, and find out what happened when Israel, because they did ignore these laws. Psalm 106, verse 34 to 41. They did not destroy the peoples. These are the Canaanites, the different people that were in the land when they came up from Egypt. God had commanded them to utterly destroy them. If they wouldn't leave, if they put up a fight, then you had to destroy them. Don't let them intermingle, intermarry, live among them. They did not destroy the people concerning whom the Lord had commanded them, but they mingled with the Gentiles and learned their works. They served their idols, which became a snare to them, just as God had said. They even sacrificed their sons and their daughters to demons, and shed innocent blood, the blood of their sons and daughters, whom they sacrificed to the idols of Canaan. And the land was polluted with blood. Thus they were defiled by their own works, and played the harlot by their own deeds. Therefore the wrath of the Lord was kindled against his people, so that he abhorred his own inheritance. And he gave them into the hand of the Gentiles, and those who hated them ruled over them. So just as we saw God had predicted back in Deuteronomy chapter 12, verses 29 through 32, Israel was indeed, just as God said, drawn away, ensnared by the works of these heathens, the worship of their idols, and to such an extent that Israel even began sacrificing their own children, human sacrifice, burning their children in the fire. We can trust God because he sees the end from the beginning. He sees what will be the consequences of our actions, should we choose this path or should we choose that path. He's not being overly paranoid. He's not like our parents maybe sometimes can be. Parents can be with children where they are overly strict or overly severe, or they don't quite know what they're talking about, or something isn't that big of a deal. God has perfect foreknowledge. He knows exactly where it'll end up, and he tells us, he warns us. He's giving us a cheat sheet. He's giving us the answers for the test. Here's the test, and then here God gives us the answers. He says, look, on this test, don't pick this, this, or this, because it'll be wrong and it'll be bad and this will happen. Choose this way, and this way, and everything will be wonderful. Everything will be peaches and cream, so to speak. So that's the deal with Deuteronomy 13, 6 through 11. If you have any more questions, go ahead and leave a comment, and I will get to it as soon as possible. God bless you.